Grave of the Fireflies is a 1988 Japanese animated drama film written and directed by Isao Takahata and animated by Studio Ghibli. It is based on the 1967 semi-autobiographical novel of the same name by Akiyuki Nosaka. It is commonly considered an anti-war film, but this interpretation has been challenged by some critics and by the director. The film stars Tsutomu Tatsumi, Ayano Shiraishi, Yoshiko Shinohara and Akemi Yamaguchi. Set in the city of Kobe, Japan, the film tells the story of two siblings, Seita and Setsuko, and their desperate struggle to survive during the final months of the Second World War. Grave of the Fireflies received critical acclaim from film critics. Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times considered it to be one of the best and most powerful war films and, in 2000, included it on his great movies list. Two live-action remakes of Grave of the Fireflies were made, one in 2005 and one in 2008. Plot: the film opens on September 21, 1945, shortly after the end of World War II, at Sanomiya Station. Here, Seita, a 14-year-old boy, is shown dying of starvation. Later that night, after removing Seita's body, a janitor digs through his possessions, and finds a candy tin, which he throws away into a nearby field. From the tin springs the spirit of Seita's younger sister, Setsuko, whom Seita's spirit joins, as well as a cloud of fireflies. Seita's spirit then begins to narrate their story alongside an extended flashback to the final months of World War II, beginning with the firebombing of the city of Kobe in March 17, 1945. The flashback begins with a fleet of several hundred American B-29 Superfortress bombers flying overhead. Setsuko and Seita are left to secure the house and their belongings, allowing their mother, who suffers from a heart condition, to reach a bomb shelter. They are caught off guard as the bombers begin to drop thousands of incendiary bombs, which start huge fires that quickly destroy their neighborhood and most of the city. Although they survive unscathed, their mother is caught in the air raid and is horribly burned. She is taken to a makeshift clinic in a school, but dies shortly after. Having nowhere else to go, Setsuko and Seita move in with a distant aunt, who allows them to stay but convinces Seita to sell his mother's kimonos for rice. While living with their relatives, Seita goes out to retrieve leftover supplies he had buried in the ground before the bombing. He gives all of it to his aunt, but hides a small tin of sakuma fruit drops, which becomes a recurrent icon throughout the film. Their aunt continues to shelter them, but as their food rations continue to shrink due to the war, she becomes increasingly resentful. She openly remarks on how they do nothing to earn the food she cooks. Seita and Setsuko finally decide to leave and move into an abandoned bomb shelter. They release fireflies into the shelter for light. The next day, Setsuko is horrified to find that the insects have all died. She buries them all in a grave, asking why they have to die, and why her mother had to die. What begins as a new lease on life grows grim as they run out of rice, forcing Seita to steal from local farmers and loot homes during air raids. When he is caught, he realizes his desperation and takes an increasingly ill Setsuko to a doctor, who informs him that Setsuko is suffering from malnutrition but offers no help. In a panic, Seita withdraws all the money remaining in their mother's bank account, but as he leaves the bank, he becomes distraught when he learns from a nearby crowd that Japan has surrendered unconditionally to the Allied powers. He also learns that his father, a captain in the Imperial Japanese Navy, is probably dead, since nearly all of Japan's navy is now at the bottom of the ocean. He returns to the shelter with large quantities of food, only to find a dying Setsuko hallucinating. Seita hurries to cook, but Setsuko dies shortly thereafter. Seita cremates Setsuko, and puts her ashes in the fruit tin, which he carries with his father's photograph, until his own death from malnutrition in Sanomiya Station a few weeks later. In the film's final sequence, the spirits of Seita and Setsuko are seen healthy, well-dressed and happy as they sit together, surrounded by fireflies. The camera then moves overhead, showing the two of them looking down on the modern city of Kobe. Cast: additional voices, Nick Sullivan, Shannon Conley, Crispin Freeman, George Lever, Dan Green. Additional voices, Blake Shepard, David Matranga, David Wald, Justin Doran, Lucy Christian, Rob Mungle, Sam Roman, Susan Kuzin. Production, Development, Grave of the Fireflies. Author Akiyuki Nosaka said that many offers had been made to create a film version of Grave of the Fireflies. Nosaka argued that it was impossible to create the barren, scorched earth that's to be the backdrop of the story. He also argued that contemporary children would not be able to convincingly play the characters. Nosaka expressed surprise when an animated version was offered. After seeing the storyboards, Nosaka concluded that it was not possible for such a story to have been made in any method other than animation, and expressed surprise in how accurately the rice paddies and townscape were depicted. Isao Takahata said that he was compelled to film the novel after seeing how the main character, Seita, was a unique wartime ninth grader. Takahata explained that any wartime story, whether animated or not animated, tends to be moving and tear-jerking, and that young people develop an inferiority complex, where they perceive people in wartime eras as being more noble and more able than they are, and therefore the audience believes that the story has nothing to do with them. Takahata argued that he wanted to dispel this mindset. When Nosaka asked if the film characters were having fun, Takahata answered that he clearly depicted Seita and Setsuko had substantial days and that they were enjoying their days. Takahata said that Setsuko was even more difficult to animate than Seita, and that he had never before depicted a girl younger than 5. Takahata said that, in that respect, when you make the book into a movie, Setsuko becomes a tangible person, and said that 4-year-olds often become more assertive, self-centered, and try to get their own ways during their ages, and he explained that while one could have a scene where Seita can't stand that anymore, that's difficult to incorporate into a story. Takahata explained that the film is from Seita's point of view, and even objective passages are filtered through his feelings. The film was released on April 16, 1988, over 20 years from the publication of the novel. Takahata said that he had considered using non-traditional animation methods, but because the schedule was planned and the movie's release date set, and the staff assembled, it was apparent there was no room for such a trial-and-error approach. Takahata said that he had difficulty animating the scenery since, in Japanese animation, one is not allowed to depict Japan in a realistic manner. Animators often travel to foreign countries to do research on how to depict them, but such research had not been done before for a Japanese setting. Most of the illustration outlines in the film are in brown, instead of the customary black. Whenever black was used, it was only used when it was absolutely necessary. Color coordinator Michio Yasuda said this was done to give the film a softer feel. Yasuda said that until that point it had never been used in an anime before, and it was done on a challenge. Yasuda explained that brown is more difficult to use than black because it does not contrast as well as black. Music. The film score of Grave of the Fireflies was composed by Michio Mamiya. Mamiya is also a music specialist in Baroque and classical music. The song Home Sweet Home was performed by coloratura soprano Amelita Galli-Curci. Themes and analysis. In the West the film is seen as an anti-war film. In Japan the moral is that Seita brings disaster by foolishly not simply putting up with his aunt for a short period of time. Some critics in the West have viewed Grave of the Fireflies as an anti-war film due to the graphic and emotional depiction of the pernicious repercussions of war on a society, and the individuals therein. The film focuses its attention almost entirely on the personal tragedies that war gives rise to, rather than seeking to glamorize it as a heroic struggle between competing ideologies. It emphasizes that war is society's failure to perform its most important duty to protect its own people. However, director Takahata repeatedly denied that the film was an anti-war film. In his own words, the film is not at all an anti-war anime and contains absolutely no such message. Instead, Takahata had intended to convey an image of the brother and sister living a failed life due to isolation from society and invoke sympathy particularly in people in their teens and 20s, whom he felt needed to straighten up and respect their elders for the pain and suffering they had experienced during arguably the darkest point in Japan's history. Release. The film's initial theatrical release in Japan was accompanied by Hayao Miyazaki's much more light-hearted My Neighbor Totoro as a double feature. In commercial terms, the theatrical release was a failure. While the two films were marketed toward children and their parents, the rather stark nature of Grave of the Fireflies turned away most audiences. However, Totoro merchandise, particularly the stuffed animals of Totoro and Catbus, sold extremely well after the film and made overall profits for the company to the extent that it stabilized subsequent productions of Studio Ghibli. Grave of the Fireflies is the first Ghibli film that the Walt Disney Company never had distribution rights to in the United States, since the film was not produced by parent company Tokuma Shoten, but by Shinchosha, the publisher of the original novel. Grave of the Fireflies was released in the United States by Central Park Media in a 2-disc DVD set. The first disc contains the uncut film in both an English dub and the original Japanese with English subtitles as well as the film's storyboards. The second disc contains several extras, including a retrospective on the author of the original book, an interview with director Isao Takahata, and an interview with well-known critic Roger Ebert, who has expressed his admiration for the film on several occasions. Following the 2009 bankruptcy and liquidation of Central Park Media, ADV Films acquired the license to Grave of the Fireflies and re-released it to DVD on July 7, 2009. Following the shutdown and rebranding of ADV in 2009, their successor, Sentai Filmworks, rescued the film and released a remastered DVD on March 6, 2012, and plans on releasing the film on digital outlets. A Blu-ray edition was released on November 20, 2012, featuring an all-new English dub produced by Seraphim Digital. Reception: Grave of the Fireflies received near-universal acclaim from film critics. The film review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes reported a 97% approval rating based on 32 reviews. It offers the consensus, an achingly sad anti-war film. Grave of the Fireflies is one of Studio Ghibli's most profoundly beautiful, haunting works. Grave of the Fireflies made Time Out magazine's, with help from director Terry Gilliam, Top 50 Animated Film list, where it was ranked at number 12 on the list. Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times put the film on his great movies list, calling it an emotional experience so powerful that it forces a rethinking of animation. Grave of the Fireflies ranked number 12 on Total Film's 50 Greatest Animated Films. It was also ranked at number 10 in Time Out magazine's The 50 Greatest World War II Movies list. Empire magazine ranked the film at number 6 in its list of the top 10 depressing movies. The film ranked number 19 on Wizards Anime magazine on their top 50 anime released in North America. Theron Martin of Anime News Network said that, in terms of the original US manga core dub, while the other voices were perfectly acceptable, Setsuko just doesn't sound quite convincing as a 4-year-old in English. That, unfortunately, is a big negative, since a good chunk of the pathos the movie delivers is at least partly dependent on that performance. Remakes, 2005 live-action version. NTV in Japan produced a live-action TV drama of Grave of the Fireflies, in commemoration of the 60th anniversary of the end of World War II. The drama aired on November 1, 2005. Like the anime, the live-action version of Grave of the Fireflies focuses on two siblings struggling to survive the final months of the war in Kobe, Japan. Unlike the animated version, it tells the story from the point of view of their cousin and deals with the issue of how the wartime environment could change a kind lady into a hard-hearted woman. It stars Nanako Matsushima as the aunt, as well as Mao Inu as their cousin. The drama is approximately 2 hours and 28 minutes long. 2008 live-action version. A different live-action version was released in Japan on July 5, 2008. The film stars Keiko Matsuzaka as the aunt and Seiko Matsuda as the children's mother. See also: Air raids against Japan during World War II. Evacuations of civilians in Japan during World War II, Japanese cruiser Maya. According to the movie, the children's father was a captain in the Imperial Japanese Navy who served aboard the Maya, a Takao-class heavy cruiser which participated in a number of naval engagements during the Second World War. On October 23, 1944, during the Battle of Leyte Gulf, Maya was torpedoed by an American submarine and sank with the loss of 479 men, including the ship's captain. The ship's name is derived from Mount Maya, a mountain located near the city of Kobe, which is where the movie takes place. Sakuma drops are the fruit-flavored hard candy eaten by the children in the movie. They are made by the Sakuma Candy Company and are sold in 4x3.5-inch tin cans with a tin pull cap. Although not as popular as in the past, Sakuma drops are still sold in Japan today and their tins have become a popular collector's item. Several commemorative tins resembling the one depicted in the film and featuring an image of Setsuko have been released over the years. Fragile Dreams, Farewell Ruins of the Moon, a video game with similarities to the film. Further reading, Hooks, ed. Grave of the Fireflies. Acting in Animation, a look at 12 films. Heinemann Drama PPA 67 €83. ISBN A978-0-325-00705-2 Stan. Grave of the Fireflies. Movie Freaks 365. Retrieved November 23, 2012. Crandall, Mike. Review, Grave of the Fireflies, Collector's Series DVD. Anime News Network. Retrieved November 23, 2012. Beveridge, Chris. Grave of the Fireflies Collector's Series. Mania. Demand Media. Retrieved November 23, 2012. C. Raphael. Grave of the Fireflies. THEM Anime Reviews. Retrieved November 23, 2012. Goldberg, Wendy. Transcending the Victim's History, Takahata Isao's Grave of the Fireflies. In Lunning, Frenchy. Mitchademia 4, Wartime, 39 €52. ISBN A978-0-8166-6749-9. Rosser, Michael. Dresden to produce live-action Grave of the Fireflies. Screen International. EMAP. Retrieved November 24, 2012. References. External links. Official website, Grave of the Fireflies at Anime News Network's Encyclopedia, Grave of the Fireflies at the Internet Movie Database, Hotaru no Haka at the Big Cartoon Database, Grave of the Fireflies at Rotten Tomatoes, information page at naujisar.net, live-action version of Grave of the Fireflies.